All right, so we're going to take a quick look at instancing inside of Blender. So we have the default cube here. Normally you might press Shift D and start a duplicate and then push it wherever you need to go. But if you hit Alt D instead, and I'm going to hit Alt D and X, push it out to the side. This is the same thing. The only difference is it automatically checks linked here. So Blender likes to call it linked sometimes, but it's really instancing. And all instancing is it's pushing this geometry to the GPU in one draw call. It uses a little bit less memory, I believe, but I don't know all the technicality behind it. Nonetheless, you can create instances really fast. What this is useful for is A, it's going to give you more performance, but B, gives you the option to modify all of these at the same time. So if I go into edit mode and start to bevel this, you'll see that they all update, okay? Which is really useful, especially if you're doing really complex, large scenes and you need to reuse the same assets over and over and over again. One caveat to this that I want to mention, I'm going to press N here, bring up the side panel. You need to make sure you set your origin in place wherever you want it before you start instancing. Because in this case, let's say I wanted to move the origin point here. I'm going to use machine tools for this, press Shift S and do 2vert. You'll see as soon as that origin point moves, it adopts a new rotation and scale with machine tools by default. And so all of my instances get updated and they become misaligned and stuff. So before you start instancing, you want to make sure you do this where you actually place your origin point exactly where you need it to go. Otherwise, you're going to run into problems. So with that in mind, if you were to say, place it here and then you wanted to confirm this rotation, so Control A, apply rotation, you'll see that it throws an error. You can't do it now. Okay, so that's just another little thing about it. And if I hit Control Z, this moves with it as well. It's kind of weird how that works, but anyways, that's what it is. And so you can do more than that though. You can of course also create collection instances. So if I press Shift A, you'll see that all of our objects are in the default collection. I can create collection instance of that collection. And now I can move that out like so. Cool, right? The thing about the collection instance is you can't actually get in there to edit it. There's no way to do that. All right. These objects, even though they're kind of tied together, they're linked or whatever, right? They do have some independence from one another as well. So if I apply a subdivision to one, you'll notice only that one gets that subdivision modifier. And if I was to apply like a simple deform on another one and did a taper or something, that one will be independent as well. Okay. However, in the instance, since this is an instance of these objects, it happens over there for that. Okay. So what happens if you want to, say, turn this back into real geometry that you want to utilize and modify and you can't? So you can press Control A. You'll see down here it says make instances real. Okay, click that, and what's going to happen is they go back to not being an instance collection, but now you can actually do this number like so. All right, you can see all of these are updating with the edit geometry as well. Okay, if I inset, press extrude with E, and bring that down, there you go. They all update. So I can, of course, apply subdivision to every one of these if needed. And you'll notice that the subdivision stays here, but it doesn't go over here, right? So there's an option to hit Control L. And a lot of times you'll find that you might want to copy modifiers. You select the object, make it the active element you want it to be. You can press Control L and you can copy modifiers to the other ones as well. And you'll see that that's replaced our taper. And there's some other options in here, link collections, link animation data. You can do all kinds of stuff. You can even link materials, which is pretty interesting, but it's a little bit more complicated, a little bit more advanced. So we're going to keep it simple here. These are now instances. The collection instance is gone, and they're just regular instances. So we can press exit. There's an empty in there, by the way. I'm deleting that. That comes in with the collection instance. So what happens if you want to modify this and not modify this at some point, right? You have all this going on. What you can do is you can make these independent. And so we're going to select them. We're going to go to relations, and we can make single users object and data. All right. When we do that, this should now be a single user instead of being an instance, right? And so now we can do whatever edits we want on it, and it's no longer an instance, okay? You may also want to try doing make local selected objects and data. This one could also be useful in some situations. So just keep that in mind. Play around with those and you'll figure them out before you know it. If it's not working one way, it might work the other way. It's basically what's going to happen. So that's instancing in a nutshell. It's pretty simple and straightforward. Now you know what to look out for. At least when you're working in Blender, you'll see these terms popping up, and you should be able to utilize them in different ways now. Anyways, thanks for watching. Check you out in the next one.